Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Couch GMs podcast. It is Saturday, January 8th, 2022. I'm your host, George Kerth, here along with the two best friends that anyone asked for. Yes, Tyler Snyder is back and yawning here to start it off. I'm tired. I'm sorry, Tyler. My intro is not exciting enough for you.
Nah, it's not your intro. I just got the Rona, so it makes you tired. But, I'm just living it up over here. I'm glad to be here. I just wanted to make sure to pop in for an occasional appearance so that you guys didn't forget that I'm a part of the podcast.
I mean, at least you're still in the logo, so we'll remember you there in spirit at the least. But we, of course, also have Cody Roadcap with us. Cody, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. Glad to be here. Glad to have Tyler back. Thankfully, he's using his quarantine hours to podcast with us and just not play video games the whole time.
Yes, I agree with that there. But why don't we talk about what we're going to cover here today? We are going to talk NFL news and notes, and we're going to preview a full Week 18 breakdown for anybody who's playing daily fantasy, because of course you're not playing in your fantasy leagues in Week 18, at least if you listen to our warnings. But anyway, you can find us on our social media channels, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at the Couch GMs and thecouchgms.com for even more than you get from this podcast. Why don't we jump in, guys, here to NFL news. First bit of NFL news here. I'm just going to let the guest of the show here, Tyler, take it away.
Guest, hello.
Guests. Wow. Rude. Well, the first big NFL news to note here today, guys, is that my ACL is improving. So I got a call from the Saints. They want me to join. They said Alvin Kamara is not getting it done at running back, so they want me to step in, be their new ball carrier. So I'm going to try it for Week 18. We'll see how that goes. But, moving on to the next bit of news, slightly as important, but we'll try. Derrick Henry is designated to return from IR. I honestly am stoked. I've missed this man so much. The Titans have been playing well without him. Dante Foreman's been doing great in his absence, but to have him back is just amazing. If you are still in a Week 18 matchup, which, first of all, why are you doing that? I still wouldn't play him. The talks are it's a long shot for him to play in Week 18, and if he does, he's only going to get a few carries just to knock some rust off and get ready for the playoffs. However, it was said that someone approached Henry and told him that they just wanted to rest him a little bit more before he played. And he came out and said, "I'm not here to rest. I'm here to play. Get away from me with that." So who knows? We might see him this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little surprised if Derrick Henry plays. I still think it's they're gonna give him that full 10 weeks, which if the Titans beat the Texans, and I don't see them getting swept by the Texans, so that's a good vibe for them. I don't see Henry playing. He'll be back for the playoff run. But I do have to ask you, Snyder, and George, you can chime in if you want. Derrick Henry, we talk about he starts the season slow, wait till December. Are we worried at all? Like, is he December, January, Henry still going to show up? Or are we going to get a little bit of September into November, Derrick Henry, you think, when he comes back?
Well, Derrick Henry is a driven man. He's one of my favorite players in the league, despite the fact that he's a Titan, because I've listened to this guy in interviews before, and he has a game and he will rush for 250 yards, and he'll be like, "Yeah, but I missed the block at one point, and I can't get over that," or "Yeah, but I almost fumbled at one point." That's what he focuses on. He's driven to succeed, and now he has sat back for 8 weeks watching somebody perform not as good as he did last year, getting all the MVP talks. Everyone talking about how Jonathan Taylor's the best running back in football, talking about how, Derrick Henry isn't the king anymore. And, I think it's just going to get him angry. I think it's going to get him driven. And this dude does not like to sit on the sidelines. I think he is just foaming at the mouth, excited to play and ready to smack some people right in the mouth. And I am excited to see what Derrick Henry's going to do. I think it's going to be January Derrick Henry. Now, I will say that I think in their first playoff game, I would not be surprised to see more of a 50-50 split between him and Dante Foreman just to get him up to speed. It's hard to be out for 11 weeks and then come right back into the full workload that he was getting before. But I think he is going to be a very key contributing factor.
Yeah, and part of me thinks that, I know you're saying there's no chance Derrick Henry plays this week, but I almost feel like they want to get him in the game for a couple of snaps this week if they're confident there's no risk of re-injury, because I think they want to be able to put that workload on his shoulders in hopefully 2 weeks and let him go out there. And I'm agreeing with you, Tyler, how if he doesn't get anything up to get up to speed, he's going to probably be limited in that first playoff game. If he gets a couple of snaps this week, I think there's a chance he gets a more like 80% workload in that first playoff game. And I think that's what the Titans want, to be able to put their formula back together to succeed. So I'm not worried about having a slow start from Derrick Henry, because I feel like some of it might even be, the games don't matter as much. You're trying to save your body for a full season. Now you're trying to put it all out there. I also kind of want to see him have a chance to get to 1,000 yards this year, because he's at 937, and I know that's a long shot for a guy coming off this injury, getting limited carries, but there's a chance.
It's one broken touchdown away. But honestly,
yeah.
I think the more mind-blowing thing to me is not the fact that Derrick Henry's returning now and whether he'll play or not, but the mind-blowing thing to me is that coming into this season, I was so excited about this Titans offense. And the first time that we have the chance to possibly see a full game out of Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, and Julio Jones at the same time comes in the second week of the playoffs, assuming that they beat the Texans. I mean, obviously, easier said than done. We watched them lose before. But the first time we might see all three of those guys for a full game comes in the second week of the playoffs. I mean, that's mind-blowing. It really is. And at the same time, I know they haven't played on the field at the same time much this season, but when they have, they average 7 yards per play. And to put that in perspective, the Rams are currently leading the NFL in yards per play at 6.1. So the Titans are right there, performing better than that when all three are on the field. Small sample size, but I'm excited to see what this offense can finally do all together. I just hope they can find a rhythm together, since they haven't been together much.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see how that all pans out. And it sounds like Tyler is hoping for a, wild card playoff upset by the Colts to get a little Jonathan Taylor versus Derrick Henry in round 2 and let him show who the king really is. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. But still getting a little bit too far ahead. We're going to talk the Super Bowl real quick. Just worth noting that the NFL is looking into Dallas as a potential backup for the Super Bowl. Maybe they're trying to force the Cowboys to get to play a Super Bowl home game after the Buccaneers did it. With the rising numbers of COVID, especially in California, but the mayor of California did come out and say, as of right now, there's no plans for us to shut anything down. We're looking forward to working with the NFL and hosting the Super Bowl. But just keep in mind that Dallas is a potential for the Super Bowl this season. But guys, what we really have to talk about for news is this whole Antonio Brown situation. It has gone full circle. He's calling people out. People are being called liars. It is like soapbox material on how this whole thing has panned out.
And look, I know that he has gotten mad about this. He has created a statement that you can't just judge what he's doing now based off of his past. But the issue is you can't help but not do it. He's trying to say that there is a conspiracy going on with the Bucs trying to cover up his injury, and also he was a few yards and catches away from some large incentives that could have added up to about $1 million, and they were purposely not playing him so he wouldn't get the incentives. Am I saying that all of that isn't true? No, it could very well be true. But this is Antonio Brown we're talking about. This is a guy who has been a loose cannon for years now, and a guy who, instead of just coming to the media and being like, look, I don't like the way this is going, I sat myself on the bench because, there was some shady stuff. Instead, he throws his pads and jumps around in the air, which, by the way, he's trying to claim he has a fractured ankle and torn ligaments, and he's jumping in the air, waving his arms. It's just all hard to believe for me because it's Antonio Brown.
Yeah, I mean, I almost don't know what to say about this whole situation, because there's been so many sides being thrown around and you don't know what's true. But like Cody said, this is literally a soap opera, and this is what makes the NFL a reality TV show. I don't know if I believe into anything that Antonio Brown says anymore, since the whole helmet saga back in was that still Oakland, and was it frostbite on his feet? Like that. There's been so many ridiculous things, and I almost think that this all stems back to when he got knocked out by Vontaze Burfict in the playoffs how long ago, and I'm worried there's CTE happening there. And I know I mentioned that on our last podcast, but because of how ridiculous his past has been is why I think he's a little bit less credible on what he's saying. But I don't know if I really trust the Buccaneers either. So I don't know if we're ever going to get the actual truth to come out. The only person that I haven't heard from that I kind of want to hear from is Mike Evans, because I know he was the person that was on the sideline trying to calm down AB before he ripped off his pads and ran off the field. He might be the one source that really would know what happened and be able to say so.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of speculation going on. And I mean, we can keep going on and on for days just unraveling all the news and stuff that's come out. But we'll have to wait and see on
But
how
he
that
was
plays out.
cut and cleared waivers. We should probably mention that.
He was cut and cleared waivers, and he said he's going to come back next year. We'll see if a team actually picks him up or not. I feel like that was his last hurrah in Tampa Bay, but I could be wrong. I could definitely see a team like the Cowboys, when they lose Michael Gallup, you'll go pick up Antonio Brown. I could see a team like the Chiefs. They can think that their locker room can handle it. So there might be some interested folks next year. But speaking of next year, the Washington football team is expected to have a new name. They're going to announce the new name, a new uniform, a new logo on February 2nd of 2022. The best name, the Red Wolves, was eliminated due to copyright issues, which I think is unfortunate. That was my favorite name of all the names that they had picked. But we still have the Commanders, Admirals, Armada, Brigade, Sentinels, Defenders, and there's still a few other ones out there. But guys, what is your favorite name left, and why is it the Washington Itchy Spiders?
Totally because the WashingtonItchySpiders.com redirects to WashingtonFootballTeam.com. Totally my favorite name, and it's totally in the lead because of that. But no, really, all the people that are trying to jump out, and I think it was Washington Admirals that redirects to WashingtonFootballTeam.com as well. Everyone's like, we cracked the code. This has been going on for a long time. No one really knows what the name's going to be. But really, I think Washington Admirals is probably my favorite left on the board. Unless they want to go and pull an XFL and go DC Defenders on them.
Yeah, I kind of like the Defenders personally. I think that's my favorite name, but like you said, I mean, it was an XFL name, so it kind of loses a little bit of punch there. And look, I hate to be this guy. I'm super negative, but I don't like any of these names. If I'm being honest, like none of these names thrill me. None of these names I'm like, oh man, that's the name that I would want to get a jersey from. Like, I kind of wish that they would take a stab at something different. I want to throw our attention to the NHL for a little bit. We had the expansion draft for the NHL over the past few years. 2 teams added. First was the Vegas Golden Knights, and it was a beautiful black and gold jersey. Golden Knights is a cool name. Like, it was awesome. And then we had, way out of left field, come the new team, the Seattle Kraken. Totally different. Awesome color scheme, and it's it's a team that you haven't heard before. It's the type of mascot that you're not used to hearing. And at first, it was a little bit like, really, the Kraken, but now it's like, it's an awesome name, and I love it. I wish they would have done something a little bit more creative and tried something better than some of the names on here. I think they're all pretty vanilla, and just none of them really get me excited. I don't know if it's just me.
No, I'm with you, and I do want to say the Washington Admirals is, and I didn't even know this was a thing, but I found out this week, is the Washington's professional Quidditch team name. It's verified on Twitter.
Copyright issues.
There was a Quidditch league, but that is a real thing. I do like what you just brought up about like the Kraken. Like, that was released, their logo design. It was so new. As someone that doesn't watch the NHL, I was like, I really appreciate that. That is something different. I don't think we're going to get a whole new. I think the colors are going to stay the same. I don't think we're going to get a redesign because there's so much history in this franchise. It's not an expansion team. But one name that's not on this list that I do kind of like is the Washington Red Tails, throwing it back to the Tuskegee Airmen and the history behind that. I think that would play well with Washington. It kind of keeps the red in there to help bridge the gap, but it's more of like an homage to history, and you get that in the Washington. But right, like the Admirals, the Brigade, like those are just kind of, I'm with you on that.
And I might be different here. Like, I know a lot of people like to stick with tradition. They like to stick with history, and you have a lot of history with Washington, so you want to kind of keep it the same color scheme. But like, I might be different here. I say this is your chance at a fresh start. Like, history's over. I don't care. You're not continuing to build history. This is the Washington Redskins was the team that has the history. You are not the Redskins anymore. All that history goes to that team. That era is over. Like, this is your chance to start fresh. Go with a new team. Go with a new color scheme. Start rewriting history your own way. Don't be tethered to the old stuff. Like, this is your chance to start fresh, and I feel like they're just kind of throwing away a nice opportunity.
I agree. I wish they would have thought outside the box too. But they're not going to, because they are still trying to tie to that Redskins history, while still
Well,
saying they're trying to separate from that Redskins history at the same time. But I think that's also just to try to calm down everybody who had them change the Redskins name in general.
yeah, well, I also think like this feels a lot more instead of like an expansion team is like when the Tennessee Titans switched from the Houston Oilers. They rebranded their logo, but they kept pretty much the same colors. I know they've altered it since then too, but they try to keep some carryover because that brand does have some reminiscence and some history. And I just hope whatever their new is, they keep the gold numbers on the red helmets. Like that's one of my favorite things that came out of this Washington football team. Get rid of the name, actually get a real name, but keep the gold numbers on the red helmets.
Very old school, but very sleek looking at the same time.
Well, everybody who wants to check out this team, head over to the WashingtonItchySpiders.com because that is leaked. That is going to be the new team name. But guys, why don't we go ahead and jump forward into a Week 18 preview.
All right, Week 18 starts off on Saturday this week. A little bit of a change up that I was not expecting for the final week of the season, but we started off with the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to the Denver Broncos.
The Chiefs.
Now, as we go through the Chiefs.
Dude, I thought I heard that too, but I was like, no, it was just delay. I'm the only one that stumbles.
The Kansas City
I'm like, nope,
Chiefs.
I'm going to give him the benefit of
the
the
Kansas City Chiefs. They rebranded as well, if you did not know. As we go through all these games, we're going to try to talk about teams who may sit starters, teams who may be sitting certain people. I do not think this is one of those games. The Broncos obviously don't have anything to play for. They're just going to go out there and play everybody. The Chiefs have a chance to play for a first-round bye. I mean, they need some help along with a win, but a win there as the first game of the week would be a good start. So we can start on the Chiefs side. Anybody you're worried about outside of your normal Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes?
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. The Chiefs are going to play. If you are still in a Week 18 fantasy championship, if you're doing a double week championship, I think you can still feel pretty confident with your Tyreek Hill, your Travis Kelce, and your Patrick Mahomes. I do know Tyreek Hill has, he still hasn't on the field fully recovered from COVID. He hasn't been able, he's gotten a couple deep shots, but he doesn't seem to be playing as many snaps. So that is my only concern. But I feel like there's too many guys that could be on the fringe of sitting that I'm not going to risk it for a potential backup. I'm going to play Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And on the Broncos side, like you said, George, they're just really going to throw out pretty much everybody. It's their final game. They have nothing to play for. So they're just going to, I think what they're going to do is they're going to try to use this game to try to evaluate what they have. I think that's their best method. Split Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon in different situations. See which guy you want to try to move forward with. You have so many wide receivers. I know many of them already got paid, but none of them have really broken out as a number one so far. Jerry Judy's probably looked the best, but none of them really have yeah, I don't even know what word I was trying to say there, but
solidified.
There you go. None of them have solidified their spot as the number one receiver on that team, so I think all of them are going to really be battling that out, trying to go for next season. I think all around it's going to be a let's see what we have, but they got nothing left to lose. And a team with nothing to lose is a scary team, so we could see some good trick plays out of here. We could see a lot more go for it on fourth downs. No reason to play it safe when you got nothing to lose, guys.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think, you mentioned Melvin Gordon. I would not be surprised if they give the workload to Javonte Williams because Melvin Gordon's contract's up this year. Let's see what I know they're both dealing with a little bit of injuries like they have all season. Drew Lock gets his final chance to show why he can be the starter there in Denver. And it could be potentially Vic Fangio's last game. I know he's a guy that's been on one of the hot seats, but this is what you mentioned, the trick plays, emptying the bag. Like those are the phrases we hear this week for teams that aren't in the playoffs. And despite the games not quote unquote meaning anything, this is where you can see a lot of fun football.
Yeah, especially when at least there's one team in these games that have something to play for. It's like the Broncos, obviously these are all divisional games too. The Broncos are just going to go out there and try to spoil the Chiefs' chances at that first round bye. So I agree. You have a good chance of having some fun football this week and seeing some things you don't normally see on a Saturday or a Sunday.
So, George, why don't you tell us about the other Saturday game that you'll be glued to?
That is the Dallas Cowboys traveling to the Philadelphia Eagles. And I know we talked about this game a lot on our Tuesday show. So since then, we have seen that the Eagles are wary about resting their starters because they're worried about rust heading into the playoffs. Jerry Jones, owner of the Cowboys, has said that they plan to play their starters and go out there and win the game. So it seems like, at least for part of the game, we are going to see starters. It actually kind of concerns me because I still think there's a chance the Eagles play the starters for maybe a half and then make a little bit of a change. Maybe the Cowboys don't play their starters for the entire game, but so if I don't even know how to really approach this in a fantasy sense. Can you throw a stab at what your stab is at it, Cody?
Sure. I think you're in a tough situation where I think all these guys will probably play at least a half. Now, you already know Miles Sanders is out, so maybe the running back you want to play is a guy like Kenny Gainwell because he'll see the second half, and he might get some carries in there. With Jordan Howard, he was a little banged up.
And
They might not see they might not want to play him at all because they know he's can actually get healthy for next week. So I like Kenny Gainwell. I hate if you're playing for a championship. Again, this is why you don't do it. But if you're playing and you got to play Kenny Gainwell, that kind of stinks. And then the Cowboys are in the same boats. Like I don't like playing Dak this week. I don't like playing CeeDee Lamb this week. I don't like playing Amari Cooper this week. I don't like playing Zeke. If Zeke even plays, because he's had that knee injury, this is like the perfect week to rest him. Like you're in the playoffs. You can't get the 1 seed anymore. Like let Zeke rest, get your home game. And so honestly, there's not a lot of guys I like in this matchup for fantasy wise, daily or redraft or dynasty or whatever it is, but that you're playing in week 18.
Well, you actually kind of made a good point there, though. Like, if Zeke doesn't play because of the injury, Tony Pollard's already ruled out. Corey Clement might actually be the most solid play in this game because that's the last running back left on their depth chart. He's already a backup, so they don't have a problem playing him. Like, that's where you kind of got to look in this game. And that's why Gainwell is also a solid play because he's a backup that they're not worried about getting injured if that's what they're waiting for. And the other guys are all banged up.
George, I know this is more of a last week kind of question, but I wasn't here last week, so I'm going to ask it now.
Okay.
In 2 sentences or less, just put my mind at ease. How the hell did the Eagles make the playoffs this year?
The fans were freaking out about them not running the ball. They decided to run the ball, which helped them control the time of possession and help their defense look better.
So the fans won the season for them?
At least the fans figured it out before the coaching staff did.
Don't forget, it took Miles Sanders getting hurt for them to decide, let's run the ball more.
Semi-disagree, though, because the game that he got hurt in is the game that they decided to start running the ball, and then they kind of backed off it because their whole game plan was around Sanders, and he only played the first quarter. That was against the Raiders.
Well, that's not as a fun storyline, but that is actually closer to the truth. But let's move on to our Sunday 1 p.m. games. We have the first one. We have the Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions. I'll start with the Packers because we talked Titans already. We talked Eagles already. We got to get to the Packers. The big news is, not for fantasy, but David Bakhtiari looks like he's going to play.
David Bakhtiari?
Get a few snaps for him. I don't think Aaron Jones is going to play. He's a little banged up. I think they're going to rest him. So, maybe they just ride A.J. Dillon the whole game. You might see a lot of Patrick Taylor. Another guy you don't want to have out there. The starters are expected to play, but we don't know how long. So we talked about this on Tuesday. Like, if Devontae Adams is going to play a half, how many guys on the waivers or other teams would you play over him for a whole game compared to Devontae on a half? And that's the same with Aaron Rodgers too. So a lot of Packers players playing, but I don't expect it to be the whole game. And we're getting a few players back for the playoff run as well. So that's always fun.
Yeah, getting healthy is always nice. On the Lions side, I mean, look, I expect the Packers to bench a lot of their starters by the second half, and the Lions have been a team that can put up points anyway. You're looking at a week where a lot of really good players might only be limited. So Lions guys really might not be a bad play here this week. I know it sounds stupid, but playing fantasy championships in week 18 is stupid. So we got to discuss it anyway. Jared Goff, not a bad waiver wire quarterback if you have to play him. You have other pieces of
He
the
is questionable. That's worth noting.
He is questionable. So obviously you have to follow the injuries. Obviously look at our page coming into Sunday. We will post whoever is inactive as we always do. But yeah, I wouldn't mind starting some Lions offensive pieces here this week. They might put up some garbage time points.
I mean, Amon St. Brown is definitely in your lineup. Like he was in your lineup last week when everyone was playing. Like he's in your lineup again this week.
Yeah, I think the running backs are the bigger question, but I think Jamal Williams is kind of your guy there. I don't believe Swift is going, if I'm thinking correctly. Cody, you're the injury report guy.
Swift is going to play. I mean, he played last week. He just got limited carries. So
there's a chance even both of them are relevant this week, especially if the Packers are playing backups in the second half. Lions could put up some good points in the second half. I think that kind of wraps up that game. We can move on to the Indianapolis Colts and the Jacksonville Jaguars. Another situation where the Jaguars are playing for nothing and the Colts are playing for a playoff berth, but there's no one really on the Jags that I like even in this situation. So, Dare Ogunbowale, anybody?
There's not a guy on the Jags that I like, but if you're in a keeper league or a dynasty league that's still playing, or you're that wrapped up but waivers are still open for guys that you can keep going into next year, a guy like Laquan Treadwell, a former first round pick who is coming on strong here with making a connection, might be a guy that you want to pick up and hold until we get to the offseason. I mean, if they come back and sign 3 wide receivers, no harm, no foul. You picked him up, you got to hold on to him through the dynasty offseason. But actually playing this week, nope, not even close. On the Jacksonville side. I mean, on the Colts side, there's a lot of guys I'd play, but not on the Jacksonville side.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Colts side, you're playing everybody you usually do. You got a good chance to actually stream a Carson Wentz this week. Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor. I mean,
heck, you play
T.Y. Hilton too. You could play Nyheim Hines. You could possibly play T.Y. Hilton. I don't know. I mean, good matchup. They're still playing for something. This is the kind of team you're looking for because these are the more sure bets in this kind of week. So play your Colts.
Well, is it a sure bet though? Like, okay, if you are a bettor and you need to put some money on this game, do you put your money on the Colts thinking it's an obvious, they're going to win, they're going to be in the playoffs, yada, yada? It's worth mentioning, and it sounds like it's a lie, but it's not. The Colts have not won a game in Jacksonville since 2014. Like, I'm not making this up. That's a real thing. Like, the Colts have not won in Jacksonville since 2014, and they now need to win in Jacksonville and snap this long losing streak in that stadium to be able to make the playoffs. Obviously, it would make too much sense for the Colts to win. Obviously, the Colts should win, but we have seen so much craziness this year with bad teams winning games they should never have a chance in. If you're a bettor, this streak. Are you putting a little bit of money on Jacksonville, trying to get a big payday?
Yep, all good things come to an end. It's coming to an end this week. I'm pretty confident.
Okay, Cody's saying bet the house on the Colts.
But then again, I'm a guy that doesn't bet anything because I've had $25 in my DraftKings account all season, and that's where I'm at. So I'm a confident $2 bettor.
I don't know if I would put money on Jacksonville money line to win the game. I would probably put money on Jacksonville to cover. I think that's a safer bet.
I don't know. See what the spread is for that game.
While you look at the spread, you mentioned T.Y. Hilton, and I'm going to ask this question a ton, I bet. But a guy like Devontae Adams, he's playing the Lions, but he might only play a quarter. If you're in your championship, are you going to bench Devontae Adams for a guy like T.Y. Hilton?
Man. So we're still voting off of the Devontae Adams is definitely playing a half.
I said he's playing at least a quarter.
I would probably play T.Y. then.
Look, Devontae needs 22 yards to break a Packers record.
Yeah, he'll probably get one catch for 24 and then be pulled.
I would not be shocked at that at all.
As opposed to T.Y. could get one catch for 24, but then take the next one 60 yards to the house. So, Yeah.
I'm still starting Adams. I know that Adams is going for a record, and the Packers like to break records with touchdowns, not with catches. So I think Adams is still going to get the yards. I think he's still going to get a score. Even in a half, I would still play Adams over Hilton. And now that we're here, the line for this is Colts are favored by 15, more than 2 scores.
Oh, Jacksonville smash the spread. Jacksonville.
Cody's
2
like, nope.
touchdowns plus is a lot.
Look, maybe it's recency bias, but that team checked out last week. Or, I mean, they've been checked out for a while. But, like, last week was their final, like, all right, good season. Let's get a new coach, and we'll do something about it next year. Like, they gave 50 points to Mac Jones and the running backs in there. I mean, Jonathan Taylor, as much as Tyler doesn't want to admit it, that he's a good running back, he admits it. I'm just giving him a hard time. He doesn't say he's better than Derrick Henry. I'll clarify. He's gonna eat against Jacksonville. Carson Wentz, unless Carson Wentz throws 3 boneheaded interceptions like
within
he did
the realm of possibility
against the Ravens, where he just kind of like plopped it up there, then they have a chance. But other than that, I'm going to take the Colts. But that's way too much time we've spent talking the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think we can all agree on that one. So let's take our next matchup and see how much little time we can talk about them, because that's the Washington football team at the New York Giants. Is there anyone we're playing? Is this game over under 3 appearances on Red Zone?
More than 3 appearances. I'm going to go over on that. But honestly, this game is so pointless. It shouldn't even be televised. Like, it just move on. I have nobody in this matchup I would start in fantasy. I'm not betting on this game. I want nothing to do with this game.
Would you play Saquon?
No.
I mean, that's a big name.
I would almost rather play Patterson.
Wow.
Jarrett Patterson.
Jarrett.
Oh,
dude,
okay.
I had to think about it too.
I was like, you going Cordarrelle? Because, like, yeah.
No.
But...
No. Jarrett Patterson. The Washington football team Patterson.
Okay. Just double checking.
I got you.
Even with Antonio Gibson no longer on the injury report. He's
no. I didn't know Gibson was back. Yeah. See how much I'm paying attention to this game? Yeah, no. Play Gibson instead. That's it. That's all I've got.
All right. Well, good job, guys. That was the quick and easy Washington football team against the New York Giants. Another one, that might be another quick one, the Chicago Bears and the Minnesota Vikings.
Play Montgomery, Cook,
and
remember. Jefferson. That's it.
Did we have the conversation about Mike Zimmer before we started recording or after? We've been talking for so long. Before. Okay, for anyone that doesn't know, we were debating if Mike Zimmer will get fired. I say yes. I don't know what George said, and
I said yes.
I don't remember what Tyler said.
I think he will get fired. I think both coaches in this game are going to be fired, and over under on which coach gets fired first. Who you putting money on? Which one is going to get the boot first between these two?
Who gets to the locker room first?
That's going to be the longest coach handshake at the 50-yard line in your life. There's going to be standing out there at midnight like, I don't want to go back there and get fired. How about you?
As long as we stay out here, we still
I'm going to say...
Yep.
I'm going to say... There's been so many reports, Matt Nagy's getting fired after the game on Sunday. Like, to the point where I'm like, is he even going to get fired?
He was getting fired after the game on Sunday, like, after Thanksgiving.
Right, that's what I'm saying. There's been... Matt Nagy's going to get fired. Matt Nagy's going to get fired. I mean, the Bears are actually good when Justin Fields isn't playing, and he's not playing this week. So, I mean, not good as a good team, but the record is above 500 when Justin Fields isn't playing. So if they win another one against the division, heck, they might say, let's give them one more year.
This is Cody, a Packers fan, trying to speak this into life.
Manifestation. You got to manifest your thoughts into reality. But at the top, the question was who you're going to play in fantasy. This is not a great game to bet on either if you're into that thing. But the big 3 are the big 2 on the Vikings and David Montgomery on the Bears. Other than that, move on to Snyder's favorite team. I was going to let him talk as the Titans take on the Houston Texans.
Yeah, the big talk in this is the Titans are sitting as the number 1 seed, and they've been battling injuries all year. So there's talks of the Titans benching their starters in this game. The only way I see that happening is if we have a big lead at half. One, this is still a key game. I'm actually surprised it's a 1 o'clock game because this is the game to clinch the number 1 seed. So I'm surprised they didn't at least make it a 4 o'clock game because it has a little bit on the line. But you need to win this game to have that number 1 seed. We watched the Titans lose without their starters against the Texans the first time, so you can't bench the starters. And 2, we watched what happened to the Ravens when the Titans beat them in the playoffs a couple years ago when they benched their starters in the final week and had the first week bye. Having 2 weeks off, they were rusty, and by the time that they finally started clicking, it was too late. They were behind by way too much. So I think the starters are still going to play a majority of this game. So if you have to start anybody in fantasy this week, A.J. Brown is still a good play. Dante Foreman is a good play. Don't think Derrick Henry's going to play. Even if he does, Dante Foreman's still a good play. On the Texans side, I don't know, Rex Burkhead if you're really desperate. I don't know. He got signed.
He got a contract extension.
He did.
So,
but outside of
Cooks,
no, still no. I think Anthony Ferkser is not a bad play if you need a tight end because Michael Pruitt went down, so that's less snaps that can be stolen at the tight end position. But really, I think you're starting A.J. Brown, Dante Foreman. That's it.
And before should have talked about this at the top of the show when we're talking about the Titans. Our good friend Tyler Snyder was on Nickelodeon for being at the Titans game this past week. You definitely have to go check that out on all his social medias, which are linked below. So definitely go give him some love on the Nickelodeon post there. And I completely lost where I was going with this whole, Houston Texans. Didn't you guys play at the end of last year and this game came down to overtime?
Yep.
Or was that 2 seasons ago?
Nope, it was last year. The Titans needed to win the game to win the division, and it went into overtime, and we had the Sloman Shield, Sam Sloman at kicker because Gostkowski got injured, and it doinked in for the win. It was a beautiful sight, but it was also ridiculous. It never should have gotten to that point. So, yeah.
Hey, all I'm saying is sometimes divisions play tough.
Yep,
that they do.
It could be a fun one, but I would be pretty confident as I am with the Colts to win, as I am with the Titans to win
That
on
means
this
we're
one.
screwed.
So if they don't, I apologize, and I'm never that confident in the Titans. So I'll make sure to pick the Texans in our picks league that I'm completely out of. So you're good. The next matchup, though, George, I think you're going to be in attendance at this game.
Yes, I will.
So why don't you tell people what game it is?
Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to the Baltimore Ravens. I'll start with the Ravens side because Lamar Jackson will miss this game. Tyler Huntley is a start again, and he should be a start on your fantasy team, I think, just because rushing ability, and he's been solid since Lamar's been out. Other than that, I think I'm staying away from the running backs because that split's been very strange these last few weeks. Latavius Murray's been getting a lot more work than he was in the middle part of the season. So I'm sticking to just Huntley and Hollywood Brown on the Ravens if I can help it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Oh, and Mark Andrews.
Oh, and Mark Andrews. Sorry, yes.
But I feel like that's an obvious one at
number
this
one
point.
tight end in fantasy right now. So yeah.
Right.
Well, you get to see Big Ben's final game in the NFL. Since he's going to be in Baltimore and not in Pittsburgh, he might get off the field in less than an hour after the game. Did you guys watch the end of that last game? Like, I get it. It was emotional. It was Big Ben. He's been there for 87 years. And it was his last game in Pittsburgh. But that man took forever to get off the field.
I'm just saying, let's save this. And when Derrick Henry retires in 5 years, 10 years as a Titan, you're going to want that man to stay on the field as long as possible. You're going to be at the game soaking it all in.
Derrick Henry's not going to retire. Stop. He doesn't retire.
Oh, yeah.
That's ridiculous.
He's playing forever. Now, honestly, Derrick Henry's the kind of guy that, like, the game will end and he'll be like, that was it. That was my career. And he'll just jog off the field and that'll be it. He won't even he might wave once, but he's just not that kind of guy. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Is Derrick Henry still the third? Sorry,
it's even bigger.
Random ass question.
It's even bigger. It's
okay.
Instead of just one straight turd, it's now a wider turd. It's looks like a turd got flattened. So it's pretty cool. If anybody's wondering what we're talking about, it's his hair. Looks like one turd shooting out the back of his head, but it's before you go making fun of it, it's for aerodynamics. It helps him run faster. The air just flows down the hair. It makes him run so much faster and it makes a stiff arm more powerful. So I don't care what you say about it. It's awesome. Anyway, Big Ben. He might not take
Big Ben.
20 years getting off the field this time. I don't think Big Ben retiring could come at an even better time, except maybe the end of last season probably would have been a better time. But glad to see him go. I'm not sad. This should be an interesting game, though, because both of these teams, in a way, have a chance to make the playoffs, but they need a lot of help.
Exactly. And it would start with the Colts winning, which is in the same window. So they might be playing hard and it might not matter at all. But on the Steelers side, I'm not playing Ben, but I am playing Najee Harris. I'm playing Deontay Johnson, and I'm thinking about playing Pat Freiermuth. I think that's where that would leave it for me.
Yeah, I'm Deontay Johnson. I know he just came off the COVID list, and we've talked about it in weeks prior, how people coming back off the COVID list, sometimes they take a week or two to get back to full strength. But with so many teams potentially sitting out, I think Deontay Johnson's right back in your lineup.
Yes. So if that is all you guys have, you can cut me off. I'm going to move on to the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cleveland Browns, the last 1 o'clock matchup. The Bengals are another team that we talked about at the beginning of the week that may sit some players, and that has come true with Joe Burrow not playing this week. Joe Mixon is also not playing, but he is currently on the COVID list, so they don't know if they're going to play him or not anyway. That complicates the wide receiver room in Cincinnati a lot, because I don't like Jamar Chase and Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins as much without Burrow.
And who's to say that they're even going to play that much either? I mean,
That's true.
I was going to say,
if you're looking for a dart throw,
it'd be Tyler Boyd.
If you're looking for a dart throw in daily fantasy, maybe a little Auden Tate. Can you imagine how cheap that guy is right now? He might get some good playing time.
Auden Tate had a fairly decent year 2 years ago, and then they just started piling up the wide receiver room around him, and he kind of got buried on the depth chart. But he was a solid-looking wide receiver.
Yeah, definitely. I think this game will be interesting with the no Joe Burrow. There's not a lot of guys there. And so on the Cleveland side, though, like, are you worried about the Nick Chubb injury that they didn't use him that much last? I know they're like, he's a little banged up, so we're saving him. But Nick Chubb, what are
But
you guys'
saving him
thoughts
for
on
what?
playing him
Like,
this week? I don't know. That was what they were talking
rest
about on
of his career,
Monday
I don't know.
Night Manning cast, and I was like, you need to win. Like, what are you saving him for? But I don't want to get into like play versus injured, because then I feel like I'm putting pressure on guys, and that's how we got to the whole Antonio Brown thing. And we don't need to go down that road with Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, great player. I guess my question is, are you worried about playing Nick Chubb at all heading into this matchup if you're still playing fantasy football?
I am a little.
Or do you like him daily?
I am a little. I'm not playing him in daily. If I'm in a redraft, you're probably in a situation where you have much more of a chance where you need to start Nick Chubb. I was going to say play Dearness Johnson. He's probably your safer bet. He's going to get carries regardless, but he's on the COVID list. So is this finally the breakout game for your boy, Demetric Felton?
I hope so. I love Demetric Felton.
So this is an absolute.
Go
I feel like we've taught people nothing on this entire show. And it's just because we don't even, no one knows what is happening right now.
Hey, we have given some great advice. What are you talking about? Maybe you haven't. I've given some great advice. I think Snyder's given some great advice.
Thank you.
I think you have too. Don't shoot us down like that. This is a great show, and we're thankful that people are still listening this far into the podcast on a week 18, because, again, this should be like your relaxed week. You just came off a fantasy championship, maybe a fantasy heartbreak, need a week to rest before you get it for the playoffs. But let's talk 4 o'clock games, because we're moving right along. San Francisco 49ers, Los Angeles Rams, maybe one of the best games of the week.
Probably.
I think you're playing everybody. Like, this should be a fun one. I'm excited for this one.
Yeah, I agree with you. I'm playing everybody in this matchup. Debo's going to be great. You got George Kittle. You got Odell is now a every week starter. Are we willing to say that at this point? Like, Odell has been honestly pretty impressive with the Rams. I like what he's done. Yeah, you're starting everybody in this matchup. It's another one of those like boring to talk about just because it's nothing interesting we have to say. It's the guys you've been starting every week. Just keep starting them.
The best storyline from this whole thing is Jimmy Garoppolo is listed as questionable, so we don't know if it's going to be him or Trey Lance, and Kyle Shanahan has declined to announce a starter. So I think I'm not playing Garoppolo if he ends up being the starter, but if Trey Lance is the starter, I'm thinking about playing him because of his rushing ability. I think that's the biggest question from the whole game. Everything else is, like you said, status quo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. And we might see Cam Akers get some game action as well, coming off that Achilles injury from July, that's even more impressive than some of these other guys coming back from injury. But I think if he does play, you don't have to worry about it. Sonny Michel will still be the guy, and he'll just get some carries, almost like what some people might think the Titans will do with Derrick Henry. Get him a few carries, get him ready for the playoffs type of run there. The next matchup is another team. I mean, these teams don't really have much to play for. Tampa Bay Buccaneers are trying to feed off all the distractions they're getting. The Carolina Panthers. I still think with the Buccaneers, though, they're gonna play. I haven't heard anything that they're gonna rest anybody. Have you guys heard anything differently? I feel like they're going into this game. They're going to play. They want to keep the momentum going as well.
But like the only offensive skill player left that's not injured is Tom Brady. At least I think. Mike Evans too. But those are the two. Like everyone else is already backups essentially on that squad, it seems like.
Yeah, but what you gonna play Cyril Grayson? We talked about him as a waiver. That's a pretty solid play this week.
Yeah.
You gonna play Keyshawn Vaughn? Hey, you might need to.
Maybe. I mean, I think Cyril Grayson's the guy, and I'm not trying to dig too much deeper than that. I think after him, maybe my next favorite guy is Cameron Brate, just because of the possibility of a touchdown with almost everyone out there.
I like the Cameron Brate play as well.
Yeah, I mean, the two things that I'm looking at in this matchup, like I know we're a fantasy podcast, but the two things I'm looking at are pass fantasy, and one, it's how quickly will Matt Rule be fired after the Panthers game this week. He's another guy on the hot seat, and I really do think he will be let go by the Panthers. And the other one is, how are the Bucs going to play? Like, I know they came back and won, but they had to come back and win against the Jets last week. Like, how are they going to perform this week with the amount of media attention and drama surrounding them? Like, they're saying that, like, Antonio Brown, whether you think he's a hothead, a nut, whatever, he still had friends in that locker room. There's still plenty of people that really respected him, appreciated him. And if he's saying that the team is doing a cover up and like is not thinking about the well-being of their players, and now they're going into this game hearing that, and all this other media surrounding them, like, how are they going to be able to fade out the noise and focus on this game? Or are we going to see more players start to get a little concerned with this team and maybe start to call them out on some things? And honestly, more players might bench themselves if you see more things like what Antonio Brown was saying, cover-ups on injuries or incentives.
Yeah, definitely have to see this play out in Tampa Bay. It's a lot of speculation right now, but there's some pretty big speculations and concerning reports that came out. I will say, so you're looking past fantasy, but if you are looking at daily fantasy, we mentioned Cyril Grayson. He's literally on DraftKings right now, not a sponsor. Cheaper than Calvin Ridley. So you can go.
We can play Calvin Ridley for 0 points, or.
So just something to keep in mind. But on the Panthers side, yeah, where are we at? I'm pretty sure there's like no one I want to play. I hope you don't have to play them. I don't think DJ Moore or Robbie Anderson are reliable. I mean, it's a rough day for the Carolina Panthers fans.
Yeah. Nope, I got no one.
Yep.
So you want to talk about Tyler's favorite coach and the Seattle Seahawks?
I'm sure himself.
And the Arizona Cardinals?
Who I will say, if you look up articles for coaches on the hot seat, one person that is on those articles is Pete Carroll. I just wanted to throw that out there. There is talks of them firing him or him potentially retiring at the end of this season. And I can't wait to watch this Seahawks implode. Not that I hate the Seahawks anymore. I used to, but I don't anymore. But just to watch Russell Wilson potentially leave and Pete Carroll potentially leave and just watch that team scramble to try to rebuild, it's going to be interesting. But yes,
I don't think both will leave.
You don't think either one of them?
We want to have that little conversation. No, I don't think both will. I think Pete will stay, and Russell will go, or Pete will go and Russell will stay. I don't see both of them leaving.
Okay, interesting.
You don't think a new head coach in there would want a new quarterback? Like, a lot of guys want their guy.
No, I think if a new coach takes
we're talking about Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
We're not talking about Sam Darnold.
Okay.
That's like if Aaron Rodgers leaves, is any new head coach be like, I don't want him. I want Desmond Ridder.
Who?
No, they want
exactly.
It's the Cincinnati quarterback that's going to be in the NFL draft. So
I don't watch
he's probably the top
college,
prospect
I'm sorry,
too, because there's no good quarterbacks in this draft is the moral of the story.
Yeah, Ridder, I don't know. It might be Kenny Pickett now because he had a better bowl game, but now we're definitely off the rails. We're talking potential
whole show's
quarterback
off the
drafts. But
rails.
dude, that's what happens every time you're on. So, and I didn't mean that in a bad way. It just we have good conversation. We go in different tangents. I feel like when George and I are on, no offense, George, it's very, very structured, very straight to the point where, you know, we act like we're all buttoned up and we get to express ourselves, give you our thoughts. Tyler's on, everything's out the
Like,
window.
hot
We're
takes
just going
guy.
to talk football.
I'm just going to throw out some
That's
random
right.
things at you guys. I'm just going to be like, JJ Watt's not even good. I don't care that he's coming back. And it's like, then it's like, okay, now we got to spiral down this. But that is one news is JJ Watt was designated to return, so he will be on that defense. It's another guy that the media won't stop looking at despite the fact that he's overrated, but that's another conversation. Fantasy-wise, since we're off the rails, I mean, is there anybody you're starting in this matchup?
I mean, the Cardinals are playing for a division. I mean, I think they need help from the 49ers, but it's well within the realm of possibility, and they're playing at the same time. I've liked Christian Kirk through this whole entire experience without DeAndre Hopkins. I'm still on the Christian Kirk train. I still am a fan of both running backs. If James Conner does go, I'm not sure if he's been ruled out yet or not. Chase Edmonds has been pretty good since he's come back. Kyler Murray is obviously in your lineup, and I'm a fan of Zach Ertz. I think those are the guys.
So actually, it's Chase Edmonds that is out and James Conner that is questionable. So there will be no Chase Edmonds. James Conner will be a question mark. So maybe if he doesn't go, Benjamin is a guy that you can pick up on your waivers.
That's a name we've heard once before.
Daily fantasy, because they'll need at least a running back.
Yeah.
There. And I do think if we pivot to the Seattle Seahawks side, I do think you can start DK Metcalf. You're going to start Rashad Penny. I think you can play Russell Wilson because there's some quarterbacks that are not playing this week, then you don't like. I think you play Russell Wilson. And I'd even dare say you can play Tyler Lockett. I think this is one of those rare games. It's divisional. I know they're not playing truly for anything. But if it's Pete's last game or Russell's last game, I do think they'll want to try to go out on a good note, especially if it's Pete's last game. So I think the Seattle Seahawks will come to play divisional, want to play a little bit of spoiler, not let them win the division. Go. So I think the Seahawks are all in play there.
So something else I want to throw out interesting because, it's all inclusive in this fantasy podcast, and I am more of our betting guy, so I keep throwing out our bets. But looking at the DraftKings Sportsbook, not a sponsor, but they can be.
Not a sponsor.
Looking at their odds right now for favorites to win the Super Bowl, look, the Cardinals have been one of the best teams all season long. They kind of get forgotten about, but they were the number one seed for a long time. They're 11th in favorites to win the Super Bowl. 11th. That just seems crazy low to me. Are we just completely out on the Cardinals having a chance to win the Super Bowl, or do we still think they're as strong as they looked earlier in the season and they are a dark horse potential?
Let me just say, I don't know if I've said this on the podcast, so I'll say it for everybody. My favorite Eagles opponent for the first round is the Cardinals. I don't think they're a Super Bowl team anymore. I think as soon as DeAndre Hopkins got hurt, they've been a mess.
George is calling his shot. I'm so excited for two Saturdays from now when the Eagles play the Cardinals on Saturday, and we're all together for our fantasy playoff party when I get my trophy. I throw that in there. And George has to watch the Cardinals beat the Eagles. I think that's what we're all looking for. But I'm kind of on the same boat as George. I think DeAndre Hopkins is a big loss. We'll see what J.J. Watt can do to get this team back. And I think there is some recency bias. Like they lost to the Lions 2 weeks ago. They had a pretty big game against the Bears. They've been struggling. They just beat Dallas, which was a big win. And I think that is a game that could propel them into, getting some momentum. If Kyler Murray's never lost in Dallas, so if the Super Bowl gets moved, that seems like a safe bet right there. I mean, they have to make it, but that is something to consider. So it might not be like the worst, like long shot bet. Like I wouldn't throw a ton of money on it. Again, I'm the $2 better as is, but I think the Cardinals are getting better. I think they hit their law and they're bouncing back. We saw the Buffalo Bills, they were the hottest team, then the Titans beat them and we're like, well, the Titans, they lost everybody and the Bills are going to be fine. Well, the Bills had a little bit of skid and they're starting to get their groove, get back right in time for the playoffs. We could see the same thing out of the Arizona Cardinals, so I don't think you should sleep on them.
It's just funny to me because, like, you talk about recency bias, but I feel like recency bias only goes with certain teams. Like, you talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. It really wasn't that long ago that we were like, what happened to the Chiefs? Like, will they even make the playoffs? Yes, they've been hot lately, so it is a little bit more recency, but they're number 2 favorite to win the Super Bowl. The Bills, they lost to the Jags, and like we're like, what is happening? Like this team, they lost to the Titans, lost to the Jags, they lost to some teams that they were supposed to beat, and they're number 3 in favorite to win the Super Bowl. Like, and the Rams, along with it, they went on a skid where they were losing every other week, and then they win one game, and you're like, oh my god, the Rams, they're great. They're number 4. So it's just interesting that for some teams that recency bias is like, okay, we're going to drop them to the bottom of the rankings. Other teams, it's like, nah, they're fine. And I find it really interesting because I think this year, I know Cody's probably trying to think it's Packers or nothing for the Super Bowl. But honestly, I believe this year more than any other year is more wide open for the Super Bowl. And I mean that wholeheartedly, that I could see almost anybody in the playoffs except the Eagles, almost anybody in the playoffs winning this championship. And I think it's going to be an exciting playoffs.
No, I actually agree with you. I do think this year alone, the Packers, if we're going to talk about the Pack, and we'll talk about all our playoffs next year, so I'll keep our next week, so I'll keep this short. But that's why home field advantage was so important to the Packers, of teams going to Lambeau Field, like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, like the Arizona Cardinals, like the Los Angeles Rams, those warm weather teams coming north. But I think anyone, and I'm not even going to rule out the Eagles. I talked about this offline last week with George. Like the Eagles scare me because they're so good at running the ball. They can keep high-powered offenses at bay. Just like on the AFC side, I still think, the teams that are fighting for it, maybe not like, I don't think like the Steelers or Browns, if any of them squeak in. I don't think you can rule out the Chargers if they beat the Raiders. Like, it's not a guarantee that the Chargers beat the Raiders, which we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think the Chargers have a shot. I think the Colts have a shot. I think the Titans have a shot. I think the Chiefs. This is going to be one of there is not, you're right, not a true, clear, like, this is the best team. Will they make it or will they get upset? It's like any week, any matchup, it's going to be a fun playoff.
I couldn't
I
agree
don't know
more,
if this is
Cody.
still true, but I remember back in the middle of the season, there was at some point, it was like, there's more teams this season with a winning record than any other season in NFL history. I'm sure we're at least still close to that, and it's showing in how wide open that this is that we're talking about.
Yeah, I think you can make a legit argument for pretty much any team in the NFL to have a chance at the Super Bowl. I know I threw some shade at the Eagles. It's mainly just because, not even because I think the Eagles are bad, but because I don't know how Nick Sirianni has a team in the playoffs. I hate his coaching style. I honestly just hate his face. I don't like him as a coach at all. So I'm ready for him to go. But somehow they're there, and any team really does have a shot. So it's going to be an exciting playoffs. But like Cody said, that's going to be talked about next week. So we should probably try to get back on track because we have been all over the place today. So let's just move on to our next game. We got the New England Patriots and the Miami Dolphins. I think
Sorry, Dolphins.
I think the Patriots are going to be playing their starters because they too have a shot at that number 1 seed, from my understanding.
And they're still playing for the division.
If the Titans and Chiefs both lose, they can still take the number 1 seed. And yes, they are still playing for the division with the Bills. Granted, the Bills are playing the Jets, but we've seen crazier. So, yeah, I think the Patriots are still going to be playing their starters. I still don't trust Mac Jones as a fantasy quarterback, but these running backs are probably your best bet. Dolphins, I think you're still starting Jalen Waddle even after a disappointing week last week. Other than that, I'm not really starting any Dolphins, not even Mike Gesicki. He's been terrible. He's been Gesicki. I think you can move on from him. So, is there anybody else in this matchup I'm missing? Thank you, George, for laughing.
Patriots defense.
You gonna throw out the Philip Lindsay there, Cody?
Nope.
Okay, I wasn't
Dude,
going to
I'm
either.
done. No, look, I'll say this again. Cutting Myles Gaskin was the hardest thing I've done all fantasy season, but it was time. And there's no running back. This offense, I need someone to fill because I saw a stat that is wild about that I saved on my phone. So I'm just gonna keep rambling.
No,
No one takes over.
All right, look,
I'll
at
jump
this
in.
game, I just want to say that the Miami Dolphins game, it came down to they needed to beat the Titans to have a chance to make the playoffs. They needed to win out to be able to make the playoffs, and Tua could not get it done. Like, I know it was a rain game, and I know that he fumbled because of the rain, and I know there was other factors involved, but really the game came down to Tua needing to make some big plays, and I've watched him fall on the ground and crumble before the sack even got there because the pressure was on him, and I also saw some open receivers downfield that would have been some huge plays, and he just flat missed them, threw at their feet or well overthrew them. And a couple dropped interceptions. He should have had a much worse game. I think one of the biggest interesting storylines moving forward is Tua actually the quarterback for the Dolphins moving forward or not? I know they put in some big draft capital, so you'd want to think they're going to keep trying. But after watching that game in person this past week, I don't know, guys. I don't know if Tua is really the answer.
That is
I
going to
think
be
they're going
an interesting storyline. I'll just go really quick here with mine because I know you're ready. Worst Dolphins teams have shocked Patriots teams in the past. We look at the Miami Miracle. I wouldn't be shocked if the Dolphins come out and play a really good game out of nowhere.
Well, I'm going to tell you why they're not.
Okay.
Oh,
You can lock the Patriots in for a win. This is a crazy stat when I saw it. The Dolphins, they're 8-8 right now. They are 8-0. No, I lied. Sorry, George. I think you're right. You're going to play the Dolphins. I have my stat backwards. They're 8-0 when they play a quarterback with an O in their name. Mac Jones has an O.
What kind
They're
of stat
0-8
is
when
that?
the quarterback doesn't have an O in their name. Hey, the internet is undefeated. I find some crazy stats, but the Dolphins are 8-0 when they play a quarterback with an O in their name. 0-8 when they're not. There's no O in Ryan Tannehill. They lost. There's an O in Mac Jones. They're probably going to win.
all right, lock it in, guys. Put all your money on the Dolphins to beat the Patriots. You heard it here first.
And when we go
Hey,
bankrupt,
that was their-
Cody is all at fault.
Nope, the guy on TikTok at WTF Sports. I mean, that's a great handle for that stat.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Not a sponsor, by the way. Not a sponsor. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next matchup because we have already taken way too much time on a week that most people aren't even playing fantasy anyway. So we got the New Orleans Saints, Atlanta Falcons. Really not playing for much here, so they're both just going to be having some fun out here. Anybody you would start in a fantasy game?
Taysom
Are the
Hill?
Saints officially eliminated?
No, actually they're not, but they need help.
I know they need a lot of help, but they
I actually
They
don't know if
need
it's
the
a lot
Eagles
of
to
help. I
lose.
think they just need the 49ers to lose.
Go ahead
I'm
and
thinking
fill. I
correctly.
had the playoff scenarios up.
Okay. But no, the Saints are still playing for at least kind of something. And they're playing at the same time as the 49ers, so that's good to know. But I'm playing Taysom Hill, I'm playing Alvin Kamara, and that's probably about where I leave it on the Saints side. The Falcons, Cordarrelle Patterson is a very interesting case because he has finally fallen off, but you're probably playing him if you've gotten this far. Yeah, that's it.
Yep.
So the Saints
Yeah,
would
I'm with
clinch
you.
with a win and a 49ers loss. 49ers clinch with a win or a Saints loss. So they need a win and they
So it
need a
is
little
pretty
help.
straightforward.
Interesting. That should be a fun one. George, if the Saints make it, are you still saying the Cardinals are who you want in the first round?
Well, there's no way we play the Saints in the first round, so yes.
Oh,
fair.
you're right. I forgot. I thought for some reason you won the division. You didn't.
Nope.
I'm sorry.
No, it's Dallas.
Saints Eagles NFC Championship game. Just cuz.
I'd be up for
Taysom
that.
Hill versus Jalen Hurts.
Dude, stop.
We just talked about how good the. Okay, I got it. We're going to talk about the Falcons. The Kyle Pitts. I believe he needs 67 yards to break Mike Ditka's record or something around there. We're going to say 69 yards because that's a nicer number
Nice.
that he needs to
Nice.
break Mike Ditka's record. So I think you're playing him. Congrats for him being the second rookie tight end to get over 1,000 yards. He does have the Julio Jones effect that he can't find the end zone. In Atlanta, I don't know what that's about. He only had one touchdown on the season, and that happened in London. He still hasn't got a touchdown over here in the States. But maybe next year, he should be a top tight end target you're targeting for the next year. But, you mentioned the New York Jets. They're playing the Buffalo Bills. We hinted at this game, and then we went off on a long tangent, and I forgot where we were at. So we got to revisit the New York Jets and the Buffalo Bills. The good news is the Bills are still playing for the division, so Josh Allen should play. Stephon Diggs should play. Dawson Knox, man, what a downer. Top 5 tight end all season. Throws up a deuce in the championship game. Not even a deuce. Throws up a 0. A deuce is 2. See, I'm trying to give him more credit than he is. But any other Bills you're willing to play against this Jets team? Are you thinking the Jets? I mean, they looked really good. Are you chasing any Jets players after they almost beat the Buccaneers? But again, we're not going to talk about the 4th and 2 quarterback sneak again. That hurt my head.
Never quarterback sneak on more than 4th and inches, in my opinion. The person I want you to talk about is Devin Singletary, because I am so frustrated with this Bills backfield that I've been saying stay off it, and then Devin Singletary apparently looked like a competent back for the first time in his entire career. Are you thinking about that?
No. If the sentence is, should I start insert Bills running back here? The answer is no. I don't care. I don't care how good he looked. I don't
Unless
care if
Zach Moss is inactive.
Even if Zach Moss is inactive, I don't care if Singletary had 600 yards rushing last week. I'm still not starting him. Like, I'm over this team.
I'd play Singletary this week.
Hot takes,
the Jets.
guy.
They're the worst team against fantasy running back.
I mean, the matchup was probably...
Any Jets? Any Jets you're playing? Braxton Berrios?
Oh.
He's doubtful. So I lied.
Oh, well, then I'm out.
He's doubtful.
Nope, I'm out then. Nobody.
Michael Carter?
Even he's been depressing since he came back from that injury. He was better before.
I'd play him over Singletary.
All right, Michael. That's what we're going to wait and see for this matchup.
I would probably lean slightly Singletary.
Because of the matchup.
Fantasy bet of the week.
I think Carter's a better running back.
Fantasy bet of the week is who's going to be better, Singletary or Michael Carter, right there.
Dude, I do not feel confident enough in that to bet, so you two are all on that.
Oh, gosh, it's us again.
Because George said it, so he has to do it.
I don't even know what to bet. I don't have any.
Cody's got to figure it out if he's the third party again. So
all right,
we'll let Cody figure that out by the end of the show.
It'll be something calm.
Okay, we got one more game to cover, so you got one more game to think about it, Cody. And it's the game of the kneel down. Los Angeles Chargers, Las Vegas Raiders. So really the scenario that's been going around Twitter is if the Colts lose to the Jags, these two can kneel down the entire game, end in a 0-0 tie, and both make the playoffs. Would it happen?
No.
As funny as it would be.
So you should actually play players in this game.
Yes.
Yeah, you play them all.
Okay.
You play Josh Jacobs. You play Keenan Allen. You play Justin Herbert. You play Mike Williams. You play Derek Carr. You play Eckler. You play Hunter Renfrow. You definitely play Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah, this matchup means more than... I mean, if there's a reason it's the Sunday Night Football game. This matchup means more than any other game this week because it is winner makes the playoffs. Loser is likely out. So I feel like you have to start anybody who is worth noting in this matchup because they are going to play hard. It should be an exciting game. I really hope it is. It is another one of the NFL media's terrible games to talk about. Can I just say how bad NFL media has been this year? Like, talking about...
Oh, don't get me started.
It's been bad.
Get me started.
Apparently, today on ESPN, they said that Derrick Henry is the quarterback of the Raiders, and Derrick Henry has not won a playoff game with the Raiders since he's been there. And they said Henry like 4 times. It wasn't like a one-time slip-up. Like, they kept saying, oh, yeah, Henry is the best quarterback they could have right now, but Henry hasn't won a playoff game. It's going to be good, big for him. Stop. Like,
I would have rather him said David Carr instead of Derek Carr, but like Derrick Henry.
NFL media
at least the Derek's match, I can kind of understand that one.
The only NFL media that has not been bad this year has been Nickelodeon Slime Time. Shout out, no free shout outs, but they are not a sponsor, but they should be. Happy to be on Slime Time. Go ahead and look up Week 17 highlights, everybody, if you want to see my cameo. It was pretty exciting. But Nate Burleson does awesome on Nickelodeon Slime Time, and that is probably the only NFL media outlet that hasn't been terrible this year.
Are we getting a Nickelodeon game for the playoffs?
I hope so.
I don't know. I never heard that announcement, but that was a highlight of last year.
They've been doing replays.
And that would be the Saturday game at our playoff party.
Oh, hell yeah. I'm cool.
Here, let's wrap the show, and then we'll have this conversation off air because we're going to go for another 20 minutes talking about this. But guys, as always, I know this show might have been a train wreck for you, but as always, thanks for listening. If you have any questions about fantasy football, you're playing this week. If you want to talk bets, if you want to talk daily fantasy, be sure to reach out. I'm infringing on Tyler's spot. I forgot that he was here to do his wrap up. So Tyler, take it away.
Listen, guys, this podcast, we don't talk just to hear ourselves talk. We talk so that you can hear us talk. And with that being said, if there's anything that you don't like that we talk about, anything that you wish we did better, anything you'd like to hear more of, any ways that we can improve, please reach out to us. We're very friendly, except George. Most of us are really friendly. We love hearing shout outs. We love hearing feedback. And we just want to make this podcast better for you so your experiences the best it could possibly be, and we want to remain your favorite fantasy football podcast if we're not already, but we are. Let's get real. We are. So guys, please get involved. This podcast is going to be way more fun for us and way more fun for you if you get involved.
Officially hands social media duties over to Tyler because he is more friendly than I am. Thank you all for listening in today's episode of the Couch GMs podcast. For Tyler Snyder and Cody Roadcap, I'm George Kerth, and we will see you all next week.
Boom.